let's move on to the main event of this podcast, of the weekend, and for many of the racing year. No offense to our friends at the Breeders' Cup. Let's talk about this year's running of the Kentucky Derby. We've talked about it a bunch already, but now it's time to give final answers. Matt Bernier, who's your pick in the 2020 Run for the Roses?
You know, leading into this race, you go through all the sort of different ways that you can lay it out, and I had no interest in trying to beat Tiz the Law. And as we get closer and closer to race day, I'm more and more convinced he's not going to win. He's going to win for fun. There's no one else in this race that does anything for me. I respect Honor AP. Maybe he's ready to take that big step forward, but I guess I just come to that kind of conclusion that Tiz the Law needs to regress and somebody else needs to jump up in a big way. One of those is certainly possible. I think both of them are possible, but I don't think it's likely that both happen. I think Tiz the Law is way the horse to beat, and you can even make a case right now that he should be the favorite for the Breeders' Cup Classic in a few weeks. I just have zero interest in beating him, and frankly, I'll be surprised if he doesn't win.
We'll come back to you, Matt, for a thought about how you might wager on this race, but we'll throw it next to JK, who I have a feeling might not have much to say after what you said, because that sounds similar to the vibes I've been getting from him in previous shows. How likely a winner is Tiz the Law, JK?
Very likely. I think it's a foregone conclusion, as a matter of fact. I think he could, I don't mean to wish him any bad luck, he could stumble at the start and still win. He's just better than these horses, and I've been convinced that he was going to win this race since about the 16th pole of the Travers, when Manny flipped the stick over and had enough. The horse is just too talented for this group. He's accomplished the fastest speed figure going the 1.25 miles, while the rest of them, it's still a huge question mark. Like Matt mentioned, sure, maybe Honor AP's been crying out for the 1.25 miles, and he's going to find 10 Beyer speed figure points based on that. But I think Tiz the Law's got more to offer. I'm usually not a guy that says, they could probably gone faster. Tiz the Law could have gone faster. The 1.25 miles Travers, I think he's only going to be better. He seems to be training well. And in fact, I hate to bury the lead, I asked about 12 trainers this morning who they thought was going to win the Kentucky Derby, and no one picked anyone but Tiz the Law.
It's so interesting. I've been saying on other shows that the 3 ends could mean we maybe actually eke out a 4 to 5 price on this horse in the race. The 3 ends being names, numbers, and narratives, the kind of things that sometimes drive bizarre betting in the Kentucky Derby. See My Boy Jack and Patch. But when I hear that from you two, that level of confidence, it makes me worry that he's actually just going to be 3 to 5. I mean, heck, he might even be technically a whiff of value at 3 to 5. Matt, I don't know if you've made an odds line for this race. I know it's something you've done frequently in the past, but what's your gut? If you were making an odds line, how many times out of 100? Now, I know you might have to tweak it based on the math and looking at everything, but your gut of where to start with how many times out of 100 Tiz the Law wins the Kentucky Derby?
I didn't price it out entirely, but just my feel, and this might sound over 70 out of 100. Yeah. I mean, I really believe we're probably looking at somewhere in that 2 to 5, 3 to 5 range is realistic. And it's crazy for me to think that, but I think that's also part of what makes the Derby being run this late in the year. I don't want to say that much less of a crapshoot, but we kind of know what these horses are for the most part. And like Jonathan mentioned, maybe Honor AP has really just wanted the 10 furlongs and he's going to just blossom on Saturday afternoon. I don't have to worry about that with Tiz the Law. I know he can do that. And he looks the part. He has every piece. He checks every box when it comes to a quality racehorse. He's got the mind. He has the tactical ability. He has the numbers. He has everything about it. He has the relationship with the rider. There's nothing for me to knock about the horse. And I feel like I'm always one that's going to try to find some sort of an interesting price to go against the chalk. But when the chalk just makes all the sense in the world, there's no sense in fighting it.
I also think that the dream of 4 to 5 could be slipping away even more now looking through Twitter. I heard on the backside actually this morning and looking at Twitter, there seems to be some chatter that maybe King Guillermo won't go. Yeah. They're still trying to make a decision. If he doesn't go, as a buzz horse, as a wise guy horse, no shot we're getting 4 to 5 on Tiz the Law.
Well, let's talk about what you're going to do as an alternative betting wise, JK. Is this a stone cold single? I remember even the American Pharaoh year, your famous Divisadero pick 6, the American Pharaoh year. Even then, you had, I think, American Pharaoh for more than the minimum. You had him pressed up nice, but you had some backups. What are you going to do wagering wise this time around?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about the situation that I can just be ice cold. It is the law. If he gets beat, I get beat. None of the other horses I can make cases for are horses that I think other people will be using. So I don't really feel like I'm picking up a lot of value. I don't think I'm getting any value by using Honor AP. I just don't think that he's going to be probably the second used horse. So a lot of people are going to not have the courage or the confidence in Tiz the Law to just ice cold single. They're going to be using others. He's going to be one of them. So I just don't really see any value there. So I'm going to be singled in the 2-day pick 6, which I'm really excited about. I'll be singled in the pick 5. Just that day of the race, pick 5. And then also I think there's an opportunity to try to hit some trifectas. I'm going to stay away from the superfecta this year. Unfortunately, I think the meat on that bone has left with the 10-cent supers. I think it's going to be very efficient pool. You're not going to have that big, beautiful payout that sometimes comes on Derby Day. I'm going to stay away from that wager and focus on the trifecta.
I'm going to get involved in the super because I really do like attachment rate as a horse to come run in underneath Tiz the Law. He is a giant long shot to beat him, I would have to say. I will have a tiny little bit of my money that way. That might be my only backup, really, is to do some stuff with attachment rate, second, third, and fourth. And like I said, just an absolute penny on top with him. I feel like we've talked about certain figure makers having the Ellis Park race not that much slower than the Travers, but the real case is just trip handicapping stuff. The very wide journey the last day, being stuck on a rail the day before at Keeneland that maybe wasn't the place you wanted to be. This is a horse who I think is improving and is very interesting as an underneath alternative. Matt Bernier, how about you? What are your thoughts on how you want to bet this year's Kentucky Derby?
Yeah, from multi standpoint, no interest in using anyone else whatsoever. I just think, kind of Jonathan's point, if he loses, I lose, and I'm completely content with that. If I was going to play an exacta or anything, and you guys brought up the superfecta piece, the superfecta, I think it's a terrible, terrible thing what they did, making it a 10-cent base as opposed to the dollar. It was what made it the unique sort of potentially life-changing score that it was for all those years. And I had somebody say, well, why don't you just play it for $1? You're missing the point if you're looking at it that way. But I'm not going to go into that anymore. If you're looking at it from sort of an exacta or try standpoint, I guess my opinion, if you're going to go with the 2 to 5 or 3 to 5 chalk on top, I want to fade the Southern California horses simply because they're going to be the logical sort of second, third, fourth choice. Outside of that, I was mildly intrigued with Enforceable underneath and maybe Solo Volante. If you're looking for horses to just kind of, plod along from the back of the pack, I don't think either of them are good enough to win or even threaten to win, but if it turns into more of a stamina test and a war of attrition, and you don't want to use Honor AP, who's going to be chalk, if you have doubts about Authentic or New York Traffic, maybe those two horses are horses that we're just going to see out the distance as opposed to necessarily be as good as some of the other horses.
There you have it, folks. That's our In the Money team's take on this year's Kentucky Derby.